Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our Tropical Weather Outlook video for today, Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. Let's start off with the National Hurricane Center homepage in the Atlantic, where we have a lot of activity today. We have Tropical Storm Dexter, which is weakening now. It's, a weak tropical storm dealing with a lot of shear, and it's going to remain off into the North Atlantic, so we won't have to worry about Dexter. Current advisory has intensity at 40 miles per hour and a minimum central pressure of 1,005 millibars. And if you're tracking it on a map, it's located at 38.0 north, so right at 38 north, and 63.4 west. And again, this is moving northeast at 12 miles per hour away from the East Coast. So we won't have to worry about Dexter for the next few days, but we will have to worry about activity that is going to come behind it. And you can already see we have two other areas here. Quite a bit of activity in the Atlantic, just as I said, is what's going to happen as we're going to head into the month of August. And I've been saying it for the last several weeks, and especially over the last several days, I've been saying that this activity ramp up that we are seeing right now is exactly what I've been saying would happen for the last several weeks. And we are seeing the fruit of it. And we're going to have to start watching things very closely here because, as I have on the title card, the pattern is going to be pretty concerning over the next few weeks. Not just that we are going to see a ramp up of activity, but the pattern for where we might actually see the activity might be concerning, especially for interests to land and population. And I'll go over why in just a moment. You want to stay tuned for that, so please watch the entire video because we're going to be talking about a lot of very important things to keep in mind over the next several weeks beyond Dexter, which is only a weak storm right now. And it's pretty, I think Dexter, and even with this thing here off the southeast coast, and probably even as well with this wave here in the MDR, I think these are really just appetizers, really, for what we are going to deal with here in the Atlantic and what is about to come over the next several weeks. And I know that sounds very gloomy and very doomy, and doomcastish or scary, and very, like I'm trying to hype things up, but I really think things are going to ramp up a lot in the Atlantic, and I do think things could get pretty dangerous here over the next several weeks, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Really quickly, what's going on in the Eastern Pacific? We have Tropical Storm Henriette, which formed from Tropical Depression 8E yesterday, and right now maximum sustained winds are at 50 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure, 1,003 millibars. Let's actually really quickly look at its track. Going to continue to stay off to the west-northwest here. Looks like it does get a little close to Hawaii, but the track forecast ends up making it go a little bit more northwest. So no direct impacts to Hawaii expected right now, except maybe very few showers and thunderstorms. But if you are directly in Hawaii, there's no reason to be super concerned about Henriette, at least for now. So obviously that is a good thing. And also Henriette will probably not become too strong as well. National Hurricane Center obviously expecting that this will only remain a tropical storm, at least for the next 5 days. And then we have another area of interest here, probably going to be an invest very soon off the coast of Mexico and the coast of Central America. This is probably going to develop and become a tropical depression sometime this week as well. So the Eastern Pacific going to continue with its activity streak, but the Atlantic going to start getting a lot more active. And here's a satellite picture of the Atlantic right now. And there are a few things going on. Obviously, we have Dexter. We also have some more energy back to the east here, and this is what is generally going to help with our spin up here off the southeast coast, which is looking like it might potentially develop. Whether or not this might actually impact the southeast coast directly remains to be seen. The GFS, I'll show you in a little bit, but the GFS, and I think the Euro as well kind of has this now, end up just skirting the outskirts of the East Coast and then going out to sea like Dexter did. And then obviously we have our tropical waves in the MDR, and I should note that there is noticeably more convection now, especially through the ITCZ here in the Atlantic. And again, that is a result. The MJO is beginning to move into the Atlantic things are starting to become more favorable, and hence why we're seeing all this activity begin to spark up now. And I'll show you the Saharan air in a little bit. The Saharan air is also producing quite a bit out here in the Atlantic. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Pacific, things still quite active right now. We obviously have Henriette, which is doing not too bad, but also not too great at the same time. This is kind of moving out towards the northwestern Pacific, so does have to deal with more dry air and cooler sea surface temperatures. And as a result, again, Henriette will probably not be a strong storm. And then obviously we have more energy here back to the east. And this is associated with our area of interest that is very likely to develop within the next few days here and probably become another named storm in the Eastern Pacific. So things continuing to remain active in the Eastern Pacific, at least for now. And in the Atlantic, as I said, the Saharan air, well, we still have quite a bit of it out in the Eastern Atlantic right now, but I want to show you, especially here in the far Eastern Atlantic, notice how we have noticeably lower, because I was saying notice and then noticeably, but we have noticeably lower Saharan air values out here in the Eastern Atlantic. Still a lot of it out here in the Western Atlantic, but I'm pretty sure if I were to pull up an image or try to find one of the images from a few weeks ago from like early July with the Saharan air, you'll definitely notice, number one, noticeably less Saharan air in the MDR, especially right here in the Eastern MDR. Once again, it's a sign of things are changing and atmospheric conditions are becoming more favorable in the MDR. And the Saharan air, all of this in general, is also beginning to move quite substantially northward as well. That's also something else that happens with the Saharan air outbreaks, is that as conditions become more favorable in August and the ITCZ here in the MDR moves further north, Saharan air ends up moving further north as well, and obviously the outbreaks become less significant too. And as a result, again, things are becoming more favorable, and we are seeing that ramp up in activity now. It's beginning to happen. And of course, being aided by just the sea surface temperature anomalies here in the Atlantic, which pretty much throughout the entire basin now are above normal. And I know some people are complaining about, what about the subtropics being super warm that might have a sinking a negative effect of the Hadley cell on the deep tropics. And I mean, that might be the case, but I don't really know how much of an impact it's really going to have, especially over the next several weeks as things really are going to start kicking into high gear in the Atlantic. I honestly think that whatever warmth we have here in the subtropics, I don't really think it's going to have that much of a negative impact, unlike what people are saying. But the entire Atlantic is just virtually warm, especially the Eastern Atlantic here. And I've talked about extensively how especially the Eastern Atlantic has warmed up a lot in recent weeks, especially through the month of July and continuing into the month of August, clearly. And the Gulf of Mexico, very warm as well, versus the Eastern Pacific, still cooler than normal. I mean, we have some warm patches here right near the coast of Mexico, but the Northern Pacific with the PDO, that's generally on the cooler side, and we also have a cooler ENSO here. So the pattern is there, and not just the sea surface temperature pattern, but the actual ridge pattern, and generally how things will set up are going to get pretty interesting here in the coming weeks. But just to continue off of sea surface temperatures, look at how warm the entire Atlantic pretty much is. The entire Caribbean, the entire southwestern and western Atlantic, at least 28 degrees Celsius, and in the Gulf here as well. Look at that, 30s, widespread throughout pretty much the entire Gulf, and I'll show you the Gulf in depth in just a little bit. But especially here off the southeast coast, and this is important because obviously we have Dexter, which definitely was able to develop because of, just look at how warm these sea surface temperatures are, especially along the Gulf Stream, 28s, even some 29s, and look at down here near the Carolinas coast and off the coast of Georgia, and also you could say northern Florida as well, even some 30s beginning to creep up along the Gulf Stream. And these very warm sea surface temperatures definitely helped in the development of Dexter, obviously, and especially with Dexter being able to spin up, I think in a matter of just like a day or two from it actually getting marked by the National Hurricane Center in the first place. And these Gulf Stream spin-ups like Dexter tend to, ramp up and get going very quickly as well. But sea surface temperatures definitely helped. And even after Dexter, which I guess to be fair was a very small and not a strong storm at all, not significant cooling of the sea surface temperatures here. Maybe a little bit of a patch through here that cooled probably a little bit, but that's definitely gonna warm up. And just look off the southeast coast, 28s, 29s, much above normal in terms of sea surface temperatures, as I just showed you with the anomalies. And then obviously in the Gulf, virtually the entire Gulf except for very small portions of the Bay of Campeche, and right along the coast obviously here, that are not 30 degrees Celsius, but the rest of the open Gulf pretty much in its entirety, 30 degrees Celsius, 31s as well off the coast of Florida, and even right off the coast of Florida in the shallower waters here, 32. So lots of very warm sea surface temperatures here, and that's certainly a major factor when it comes to development in the Atlantic. And why is this all concerning? Well, this is why. Here's a tweet from Webb, and he actually made this tweet last night. And from time to time, I like to look at what people are saying on Twitter. And this is what Webb said last night. This is not exactly what you'd call an easy recurve pattern, with the polar jet stream being shoved all the way up into Greenland and northern Canada, while the subtropical high migrates up to 45 to 50 north. So pretty much what he's pointing out is that the jet stream is very far north, meaning that high pressure in the Atlantic is also very prevalent throughout the northern subtropical of the portions of the Atlantic. Pretty much what he's saying is the pattern that's going to set up over the next several weeks, and notice the time frame here. This is getting towards the middle to latter portions of August, August 19th. And actually, this is the week of August 14th to August 19th is when Webb is showing this map from the EPS, because this is the EPS model. What he's basically showing is that the ridging in the Atlantic will be very strong, and obviously, since we have stronger ridging, that'll mean much more of a chance for storms to develop and be able to track further west, and maybe bring impacts to where all of us live in the United States and throughout the Caribbean, and that is in the Western Atlantic, which is why he says this is not exactly what you call an easy recurve pattern. So just to put that into perspective here, we have a strong ridge with very, very warm sea surface temperature anomalies throughout the entirety of the Atlantic. Yikes, that is not a good combination. And this is all happening as we get into the mid to latter portions of the month of August, which, as I showed you just a few days ago, that's especially when activity begins to ramp up in the Atlantic. And not just typically when things are gonna ramp up in the Atlantic, but just take a look at the models, and it speaks for themselves, especially as we progress over the next few weeks. More and more activity just continues to pop up. This is the European ensembles for today. This is the overnight run, and there's just a slew of activity. We have Dexter here. This is our MDR area of interest, which still several days out. And as I mentioned, the ridging pattern here will especially be very prevalent in the northern Atlantic. So we don't necessarily know what exactly is going to happen with this area of interest, but European ensembles, at least today and over the last several days, more certain that whatever develops right now with our current area of interest, and I say current, in the MDR, probably is going to stay out to sea, which is obviously a good thing. And then we also have quite a bit of support, especially with our thing in the southeast. But notice, look back here towards the MDR, especially as we head into the end of this model run. So that's roughly around 7 to 10 days out. Notice how much activity begins to pop up after this wave here in the MDR. Notice just how much more activity begins to spawn. And notice as well, with a lot of these low pressures here, you can't obviously take any of them verbatim, because as we get towards the end of the model run here, it's all 10 days out. But just look at the overall pattern. A lot of these lows here are much more low riding, and you actually see some of these lows progress further westward. They're not like what this MDR thing is here that is in the short term that's just going to go out to sea. A lot of these low pressures are a lot more forming closer, much more southward. There are low riders, as we like to call them, meaning that they'll probably track much further west. And it all ties into what I just showed you with Eric Webb pointing out that the ridge pattern over the next few weeks in the Atlantic will set up that we are not going to be very recurve favorable. And the European ensembles are definitely hinting at it with all these much more low riders here. And that's definitely a threat to us here in the Western Atlantic, considering one, again, sea surface temperatures are very warm, especially as you get into the Caribbean and Gulf, and in general throughout the entire Atlantic. But two, we all live here in the Western Atlantic, so a very dangerous pattern setting up over the next several weeks here, which is something that we definitely need to be watching very closely. And finally here, just to end off, I'm going to show you the GFS, and I'll show you here as we go through the next several days. We have Dexter, so Dexter won't really be much of a concern here in the Atlantic. Might stick around for a little bit, but probably not as a tropical system. In fact, the days of it, the time of it being tropical is probably going to run out very soon. In fact, even by here, it still looks like a very, bona fide system, but it's probably non-tropical. So the bottom line, what I'm trying to say is don't worry about Dexter. So that's Dexter, but don't pay attention to that. Pay attention to the MDR here. And this is our wave. This is the area of interest the National Hurricane Center has tagged in the MDR. And notice what it does, at least on the operational GFS. Notice here the very strong ridge out over the open northern Atlantic. And notice, especially as we head into the next week, this wave here does not turn out north and go out to sea like the European ensembles show. In fact, especially as we get towards the 7-day time frames, this is a week out, and this is all I'm going to go. This is all I'm going to go out to, because going out beyond it, all kind of crazy things and possibilities can happen, especially beyond a week out. But just notice that this goes further west. Just like I pointed out, we're going to have a very strong ridge, and even the European ensembles in general show activity around 7 to 10 days. A lot of it starts going west instead of going out to sea. And the GFS already starts showing that with our MDR wave, versus, as I just showed you with the European ensembles, they take our first MDR wave out to sea, which is why I say, especially with a lot of this being still 5 to 7 days out, you really cannot latch on to one scenario. We really have to be watching the tropics as a whole throughout the next several days here. And we're definitely going to have to watch as this pattern is going to get really interesting. And it's going to happen as activity is going to ramp up as we go throughout the month of August, which is already beginning to happen. And once again, I've been saying that this is going to happen for the last several weeks, even since June. I was saying that things are going to kick into high gear, especially as we head into August, and especially to everybody saying that this season was not going to be active. I have a feeling over the next several weeks, a lot of people that were doubting the season, especially in June, are going to be very wrong. Just a matter of, though, if everything pans out the way it looks like it will, which obviously, it still might not. All of these models might still be wrong, and we can hope for that. But again, as I've said before, hope is not a planning tool. You must watch the tropics and stay tuned for what's going to happen, especially here over the next several weeks. And we're going to continue to do that. As I've been saying, I'm going to be doing these video uploads every single day, today, tomorrow, and pretty much till the end of the hurricane season. So if you are interested in keeping on top of the tropics over the next several weeks, obviously I will say, though, do not be scared. That's also not helpful at all when it comes to watching the tropics. Do not be scared, but be vigilant, and stay on top of the tropics, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because we're going to be doing these videos every single day, and I look forward to being able to talk to you every single day, especially if you are new to the channel and you like what you saw. look forward to being able to give you information for the next several weeks here in the Atlantic. And especially if you like what you saw today and you like these videos, please make sure to like them. And also share this video as well with family and friends and anybody who might find this content interesting. Certainly helps out with the algorithm and certainly helps get out the information to people who may especially be needing it. With that being said, I'm going to wrap it up for today's video to get this to you on YouTube and, of course, online in general. So enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. And, of course, I'll be back with more tomorrow.